Hey gang, what's going on? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks for checking out today's video. I'm actually sitting out here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Owen has a weightlifting competition today, the Nationals weightlifting competition. He's worked really hard to get there, so we're going to watch him today, and everybody's getting ready inside, and I wanted to do today's video out. Since I don't have any lures or props here in Colorado, we're just going to have a Sunday morning conversation about some random things that's going to help you become a better bass angler, help you have better trips when you go on the water. I've got millions of things, but I'll just talk about some basic stuff here that I think is going to help you guys out. Real quick, guys, before we get started here, we're just about out of time. Now through the end of June, Solarbat has a sale on my RB2 series, Signature Series sunglasses. They extended that Father's Day sale, and if you order a pair now, between now and the end of the month, which is just a couple days from now, you get them for 30% off. So I'll put the Solarbat link in the description if you guys are interested there. You guys will really like the just the optical clarity and the attention to detail on these glasses. I think you guys will really like them, so link in the description. Okay guys, what I wanted to do here in today's video, I just wanted to sort of give you, I want to sort of run through when I go to the lake. Let's say it doesn't matter if I go to a lake that I know really good or don't know very good. I'm just going to tell you some basic things that I do that I've learned that has really helped me out to find fish quicker, to locate them quicker, and to catch them quicker. This is something I've done for so many years that it's sort of second nature, and I don't even think about it. But I sort of want to go through it because I really think it's going to help you guys have less productive time on the water and have more time catching and less time looking for them. One of the first things I think that you need to do is before you go fishing to the lake or whatever, you need to sort of have a game plan as far as the area of the lake that you want to fish. This is really important, and one of the best ways that you can do with this is try to get online and try to talk to some people and find out a little bit about the conditions on the lake, as far as water clarities around the lake, areas that seem to be productive more than others. Study the predominant cover that's in that area based upon seasonal patterns, and narrow the lake down to one or two areas. Now, say for example, let's talk about right now, here it is almost July. And let's say if I was going to one of my favorite lakes across the country, the first thing that I want to do right now is I want to look for off-colored water, because I don't want to have to get out and fish deep. I don't live scope, so I'm not going to do that. So given that, I mean, the places I want to catch fish in are going to be the off-colored water areas. So any lake that I go to, I'm going to search for that type of water, and that type of water is normally in the upper ends of the river arms, upper ends of the tributaries. So if I go fishing, that's where I'm going to fish. I'm going to make my lake those little bitty areas in the upper ends of the tributaries. Now, say for example, if you like to fish offshore, if you're an offshore fisherman, it's completely different. You're going to have to be down in the lower to mid part of the lake where those type of structures exist, and you may decide that you want to pick, say, a 3 or 4 section down by the dam area, and you just want to run and fish main lake points all day. But the point is however you like to fish, and the time of year that it is, isolate one part of the lake and make that your part of the lake. And what this is going to do is this is going to cut down the intimidation factor a little bit. It's going to make your options less, and it's going to really narrow your focus in those particular areas. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is, once you get into that area, one of the things that I like to do is I try to sample the primary predominant cover that's in the area. Now let's go back to, again, if I was fishing up the river or up the creek, I'll have to go up there and I look to see what the cover is. It could be rock cover. There could be a lot of laydowns. Maybe there's some shallow bank grass. Maybe there's some boat docks. And I try to get this mental picture of the cover that I'm fishing is. And the same if you're back down the lake. If you graph around on those points, you may notice some brush piles off the end of the points. You may notice some fish being suspended. You may notice some good drop-offs. Every area has cover unique to itself. So you sort of have to get a feel for what your options are. Now, once you do that, once you get a feel for your options within the area that you've decided to fish, then you have to determine the technique that you want to try to approach that with. And this is usually pretty easy because most guys that bass fish to any extent at all have a pretty good idea of the techniques that work good this time of year. Say, for example, if you're fishing again down on the lower end of the lake, you may want to try a little swim bait or a big worm or a deep diving crankbait, based upon the water clarity and the depth you're fishing. I may want to try flipping a jig up the river, or fishing a little crankbait, or fishing a square bill crankbait, or fishing a spinner bait, and then you got to at least start somewhere. So normally what I do with that is, let's say, for example, I get up the river there and there's a lot of lay down trees in the water, and I go through there and I start flipping my old school jig in there, and let's say, I catch one or two down a good looking stretch.
In the yard?
Huh?
Can I pee out in the yard?
Well, you probably need to find some place where there's nothing around, or go inside the house, one of the two.
What did you say again?
Okay, well, just go someplace where nobody can see you. Elijah's like me; he loves to pee outside. I cannot stand it to pee in the house. That's one of the reasons we moved outside of town. Is I love peeing outside, and Elijah does too. So he came outside to pee here. So anyway, let's say, for example, I start with my old school jig and I catch, 2 or 3 fish down an area. And maybe I feel that there's more fish there, but maybe they're not as aggressive and they don't want that big jig. I may go back through that area with a smaller bait, like flipping a smaller worm or a tube or something like that, and see how many I pick up. Same for fishing deeper, guys. You may get out there and you may, catch a couple fish, deep cranking a deep diving crankbait, and you may feel there's more fish there, or you may see more fish there, and you may come back through that same area and drag a football head jig. The purpose of it is you have to maximize that particular area, and you have to get the most out of it. And the way that you do that is through changing your lures, changing your casting angles, changing your colors, making some type of a modification. Now, one of the things that I learned from my buddy Aaron Martins in bass fishing is Aaron, he was notorious for about fishing one area and beating it to death. And his philosophy was that he wants to catch every bass on that point, or he wants to catch every bass along that bank that's got the lay down trees on it. And he's not going to look for other areas. He wants to catch every fish that's right there. So he would change up lures, techniques, weights, head sizes. He'd make lure modifications and actual fishing technique angle changes in order to maximize that particular area. And that's one of the really good things that you need to remember if you've isolated a part of the lake down where you don't plan on running patterns. Now, let's say if I was, running a pattern and I wanted to expand the lake, if I caught, 3 or 4 flipping that jig down a shoreline that had some lay down trees, I may run to the next creek down the lake, 5 miles down the lake, and try to duplicate that pattern. But if you're trying to narrow the lake down, that's when you have to adjust your, the specifics of your presentations with that. And don't discount that, guys. Don't discount the importance of hitting that right lure and hitting the right color and hitting the right weight, because I've seen so many times, let's say, for example, I'm flipping bow docks, and maybe I'm flipping a Zoom trick worm on a 3/16 ounce sinker. I may think that green pumpkin is the way to go, and as it turns out, after I experiment through different colors, I may wind up catching them on black. So one of the things that you need to do as far as on lure color and presentations and sizes is use the 15 or 20 minute rule. If you're in a good looking area, fish something for 15 or 20 minutes, then change it and fish that for 15 or 20 minutes, and eventually you're going to hit upon the right thing. Another thing with that is you have to, and this is just random stuff I'm coming up that's going to help out. It's like when you pull into an area, and I don't care if it's, again, your point on the lower end of the lake or if it's up the river shallow, think in your mind about how most bass anglers would approach that. And then you want to do something different. For example, if you're fishing the main lake point, most people get out in 15 to 20 or 30 foot of water and they fan cast around the point ends of the sides. Instead of doing that, get your boat up shallow against the bank and throw out to deep water. Or, if you're, flipping a set of lay down trees in the water and you're, working down the outside of those trees, try getting your boat right up against the bank and flipping or casting against those trees, coming deep into shallow. Casting angles and the way that you approach an area has a lot to do with how you're going to catch, how many fish you're going to catch in today's world of fishing, because bass are highly pressured, they're highly educated, and they pick up on little stuff like that. And this is the stuff that you have to do to catch more fish than anybody else. I mean, most of the time, you have to trick those fish into biting, and the way that you trick them into biting is a lot of times with just simply different approaches out there. But anyway, guys, that's just a few random thoughts this morning. There's so much more to it. I mean, it's just bass fishing. The reason it is so difficult and the most difficult sport in period is there's so many variables, because just like what I told you right there, the little examples I gave you, there is 100 other factors involved. Let's say, for example, let's real quick here, because we had to get going to the weight deal. But let's say back down, if you're fishing the main lake points for the deeper fish this time of year, not only do you have your casting angles and your lure selection to consider, you have everything. You got the timing, you got the light intensity, you got the angle of the sun, you got the wind speed, you got the wind direction, you got the factor of recreational traffic on the boat. You've got the water temperature. You've got the relationship of the water temperature and water clarity into the species of fish on the lake. Does the lake have all largemouth? Does it got a mix of largemouth, spotted bass, smallmouth? What's the percentage of those mixes out there? The list goes on and on. There's so many freaking variables in the sport, and that's why nobody can go out there and catch them every time. So anyway, hope it helps. Hope you can pick up one thing on what we talked about there and help you guys catch some more fish. And we'll check in later. See you guys.